Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Om.
Om.
Ahum. So just a few words before we really begin. So we've got two separate but connected things happening this evening. We've got the sevenfold puja, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a second. And we've also got 3 mitra ceremonies, which Ratnaprabha will be taking and will also explain in more detail when it gets to that point. So when we do the mitra ceremonies in the context of the sevenfold puja, we just do the opening worship. Then we have the mitra ceremonies. The mitras make their offerings as part of the ceremony. And then we'll have the Avalokiteshvara mantra led by Pippa. And when the mantra is going, we can all come forward and make our own personal offerings during that time. And then we just carry on with the rest of the puja. So the sevenfold puja, it originates in spontaneous verses said by a Buddhist practitioner many centuries ago as they made the transition into becoming a deeper Buddhist. So they were someone who was a Buddhist monk already, but they had a moment of realization, and these spontaneous verses came out. Actually, they're part of a much bigger set of verses which are contained in a book, but this is a kind of distilled version. So they were quite personal, quite poetic, and of course they were said in medieval India. So they include sort of Indian flowers and offerings and things like that that we might not be entirely familiar with. But they generate a set of feelings which we can be very familiar with if we join in. So it starts with worship and then with salutation. These in a way are quite similar, and they're basically a response, particularly to the Buddha, but to all enlightened beings, all those who've gone before us, all those who've achieved more than so far we have. And the response is one of generosity, and we were hearing earlier on in our workshop how generosity is one of the Sangha Vastus. It's one of the things that builds a community, generosity between people and towards a goal, towards an ideal. And following on from that kind of generous response to enlightenment, of course, what follows is a desire not just to leave it as a kind of awed response, but to activate, to act, to do something. And in Buddhism, this is what's called going for refuge. So there are verses of going for refuge, and we chant in the ancient Pali language the 3 refuges. We chant them 3 times each, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So that's an expression of our response and our desire to actually practice in the light of the Buddha's enlightenment, along with his teachings and in the context of a Sangha, a community, so that we don't have to go on alone. And then, maybe not so obvious, but the next response is confession of faults. So I think it's not uncommon, sometimes when you have a high ideal, you suddenly realize that you fall a bit short of that ideal. So that's what this ancient Buddhist practitioner realized. He realized his aspirations were very high, but he still had further to go. So he wanted to confess in a general way anything that was standing in his way. And then having done that comes rejoicing in merit, because having got that off our chest, as it were, we realize not only are we doing good, but all those around us are also doing good, and we can tune into that and we can rejoice in that. Then comes salutation, and after salutation, then comes entreaty and supplication, and after entreaty and supplication, we do the Heart Sutra. So the Heart Sutra is a pithy Buddhist teaching in its own right. So those of us who know the Heart Sutra, we do that in English, and you can all join in. We don't do it in call and response, we do it in unison. But let's do it in a slow, relatively reflective way. So we don't have to rush through it. It's a teaching. We have to hear it as well as say it, if you see what I mean. So there's no point in saying the Heart Sutra if you haven't heard it. So as we speak, so we listen. And then finally, transference of merit and self-surrender encapsulates our desire that whatever we've done, whatever we've achieved, is also for the benefit of others. And then when that comes to an end, Anna will lead us in the Padmasambhava mantra. We don't make offerings usually during the Padmasambhava mantra, and then we have the concluding mantras at the end of the puja, and that's the end of the evening. So you're very welcome to join in, even if you've never done a sevenfold puja before. If you want to try it out, it's in call and response. You can just repeat after me and see what it feels like. If you don't feel like joining in, just listen, just take in the atmosphere. So firstly, worship. With Mandarava, blue lotus and jasmine.
With Mandarava, blue lotus and jasmine.
With all flowers pleasing and fragrant.
With all flowers pleasing and fragrant.
And with garlands skillfully woven.
And with garlands skillfully woven.
I pay honour to the princes of the sages.
I pay honour to the princes of the sages.
So worthy of veneration.
So worthy of veneration.
I envelop them in clouds of incense.
I envelop them in clouds of incense.
Sweet and penetrating.
Sweet and penetrating.
I make them offerings of food, hard and soft.
I make them offerings of food, hard and soft.
And pleasing kinds of liquids to drink.
And pleasing kinds of liquids to drink.
I offer them lamps encrusted with jewels.
I offer them lamps encrusted with jewels.
Festooned with golden lotus.
Festooned with golden lotus.
On the paving sprinkled with perfume.
On the paving sprinkled with perfume.
I scatter handfuls of beautiful flowers.
I scatter handfuls of beautiful flowers.
So what we've got now is 3 mitra ceremonies happening in the context of the puja. So I'm going to say a little bit about what it means to become a mitra, and then the ceremonies will happen for Jason, and then Sue, and then Thomas. So it's a very special occasion and a very joyful occasion as well, because it's a chance for those 3 people to make an expression of their feeling of connection and commitment to leading a Buddhist life. And so it seems to me that when you come along to a Buddhist center and learn meditation, it's very important that you go into the ocean gradually. The Buddha said that the Dharma is like the mighty ocean, and in one respect it's like the mighty ocean in that it slopes down gradually. So you can just dip your toe in the mighty ocean and try meditation and see how it goes. You can go right in up to your ankles or your knees. You can go in further. But there comes a point when you just will say, let's just have a little swim. Let's take my feet off the ground and have a little swim around here and see what that really feels like. And that, in a way, is a moment of making a commitment to following Buddhism. A mitra means a friend, and so they've become a friend of Buddhism. They've also become a friend of each other, and they've become a friend of all of us in the Sangha here. Today is Sangha Day. We're celebrating the Sangha, the community, the spiritual community. And so it's a wonderful, auspicious time to become a mitra on Sangha Day, when we're all thinking of the connections that we're making with each other through Sangha. So mitra means friend in the Sanskrit language. It's connected with metta. Metta is, of course, loving kindness or friendliness or kindness, even. And that's the spirit, I think, in which one is becoming a mitra, one of friendliness within the community, within this network of people. So it's not just a commitment to the Dharma, to practicing Buddhism, it's also a commitment to the Sangha, in the sense of, I found, for the time being at least, I've found my Sangha. I feel at home here. I feel at home with these people. I feel at home in this general community. I feel at home in this overall Buddhist movement. And for the time being, at least, this is where I would like to practice. It doesn't mean that you don't gain inspiration in reading about Zen and all sorts of things like that. But for the time being, you're saying, well, I'm going to try this community as my place of practice. And that may, of course, change in the future. So becoming a mitra means deciding to commit to leading a Buddhist life where you're practicing Buddhism. It means deciding that you feel, for the moment at least, at home in this particular community. And it also means deciding to be as ethical as you can. So the 5 precepts become particularly important for somebody who becomes a mitra. The 5 so-called ethical guidelines or training principles, that's the literal meaning of Sikkhapadam, principles of training. And we'll be reciting those in both English and in Pali after the Going for Refuge section of the puja. I'm not going to go through those 5 precepts, but I'm sure all 3 mitras are very, very familiar with them. And we'll be doing their best to see how they can bring those into their lives even more. It's something that simply goes deeper. It's not an either you're practicing the precepts or you're not. It's more you're saying, well, okay, the training principle of not harming other living beings. Now, how can I make that stronger in my life? How can I make that more prominent in my life? And the same for the other precepts as well. And I think the last thing I want to say about the meaning of becoming a mitra is that it's not just a connection with Buddhism as a whole. It's not even just a connection with the Triratna Sangha as a whole. It's also a connection with this centre. Now, you'll be welcome as a mitra in any other Buddhist centre you go to, any other Triratna centre you go to. But there is a particular link in this centre, the North London Centre, where you become a mitra. And so part of becoming a mitra is that if you wish, it's getting involved in this centre in deeper ways. Maybe joining a study group. We have mitra study groups. Maybe there are some retreats and special events for mitras, but also maybe in wishing to help out in various ways. So, you know, the centre needs people. The centre consists of people. The centre thrives because of what people put into it at all sorts of levels. So if you become a mitra, you're willing, you know, within the constraints of your life, you're willing to help to make the centre flourish in all sorts of different ways. Now, we've got somebody to introduce each of these 3 mitras, and I'm going to ask them to do that all together rather than one at a time, if you see what I mean. In other words, first of all Jason, then Sue, then Thomas will have their introducers talking about them one at a time, and then they'll make their offerings, rather than us going through each person separately. Does that sort of make sense? Mm-hmm. So first of all, I would like Nandaraja to say something about Jason, so that we can get to know Jason a little bit. Oh yes, if you could come forward, Nandaraja, that would be good, so that the microphone can hear you.
The other way.
So you have to raise the camera up a bit to see Nandaraja's face. So you have people watching on YouTube as well. And undo a little bit by twisting the arm. No, twisting the arm you're holding with your right hand.
Yeah, so yeah, I would like to rejoice and introduce Jason. Jason started at least 2 years ago after after the lockdown, and he's been around this area for decades. But at that particular time, he wanted to form a connection. I've been talking to him, and previously, he was into yoga, and he had certain experiences, and by being in the mitra studies and getting to know more about Buddhism, it's kind of made it clear what was happening. So he was already on a spiritual journey. It was just that after the pandemic, I think there's been a general air that something has shifted, and his way of making connection. So first of all, he went on 3 and 4 week courses, which we provide here, and he got a lot out of that. And so he went on several courses, and then he said, okay, he wanted to make the next step. Yeah, and I've seen him on Tuesday classes, kind of made eye contact, usually the only 2 black men, there. But it was quite regular. And from those Tuesday classes, he sort of got involved. And for me, one of the qualities of Jason is the fact that he's willing to go outside his comfort zone. He's willing to sort of push the envelope and see what more is out there, even though, like me, there's usually sort of resistance to that. So he's sort of willing to overcome his resistance and actually try a bit further. So having done that, he finally sort of came to last year's mitra ceremony, and that was because he decided to join a mitra study group. And again, what impressed me about Jason is that he did it in 1 year. It took me about 7 years to go through all that process. And in the mitra study group, you sort of meet up regularly with other people. You kind of form a Sangha and you explore. And so the first year mitra study group is just there, sort of just the basics of Buddhism, just getting to know some of the terminology. And he found he wanted to celebrate somebody else becoming a mitra. And again, but that was a beautiful thing, because now we can celebrate him becoming a mitra. But so from that experience of going on a festival day, he then proceeded to sort of maybe try going on a retreat. And again, we had some resistance to that, but he actually loved it. And again, talking from my experience, it's always like that. You're sort of stepping into the unknown. A part of you is not fully on board, but one of the sort of positive qualities about Jason is that he is willing to do that, and especially when I saw him on the Friday Puja group. My experience of Puja again was quite a lot of resistance, and even though he had some resistance, he was consistent and he came on a regular basis, and is now sort of one of the regular stalwarts of the Friday Puja group. And his presence, he is a positive presence in that group, and because of his regularity of practice, he's had experiences in Puja that also sort of backs up some of his that has made sense when he started studying in the mitra group. So there are certain things that the Buddha says, or there are certain concepts and it's usually you sort of hear the concept and then you have the experience. So it's more like you have the experience and then the mitra studies give you the context in order to make sense of what's going on, and that's been his continued experience. You know, he's kind of been having experiences, and then the Dharma has been providing a container to make more sense of what's going on. But there's a quote I'd like to say, you know, which sort of, for me, encompasses, you know, his attitude. And the quote is, to say that you need to be at peace with your own level of commitment doesn't mean that you don't challenge yourself. Life always moves into the unknown, into newness. If you're not moving into new territory, you are stagnant and in some ways already dead. To be vibrantly alive and happy, some challenge is necessary. And that sums up Jason, that he is really up for the challenge. You know, he has had experiences and they have moved him forward, and he's also willing to engage in the unknown, and that is part of the spiritual life. It just gets broader, and so his commitment of becoming a mitra is just one significant step, of which I hope will be other significant steps in the future as he makes a deeper commitment. So it's to quote from the Puja, you know, as one by one we make our own commitment, and ever widely circle, the Sangha grows. And I want to welcome Jason into the wider Sangha.
Thank you very much, Nandaraja. Now, Gugyasaki would like to introduce Sue, but Gugyasaki can't be here today, so I hope Darshadni is able to come forward and just introduce Sue on Gugyasaki's behalf.
It's all right if I sit down. I think it's all right. Yes, so apologies for reading off my phone. I'm reading what Gugyasaki has written for Sue, and also I'm really, really delighted myself that Sue's becoming a mitra. So Gugyasaki says, I met Sue some years ago, before lockdown, at a restaurant in Walthamstow as part of a community called Stowe Sangha, set up and facilitated by a couple of order members wanting to grow community in Walthamstow. She walked part of the way home with me and we had a good chat. I found Sue to be warm-hearted, friendly, and someone who cares deeply about those in her community. We share a love of the planet and innovations to protect the climate, plus a love of yoga and meditation and studying and practicing the Dharma with others. Sue first encountered the Triratna Buddhist Community when she started going to the LBC in 2018. Her first course was the Journey and the Guide with Maitreya Bandhu. Then in 2021, when the COVID restrictions were being lifted, she started coming to the NLBC. I'm happy to say that she found that this was a Sangha that she could connect with, feel at ease, and get to know people more easily. Sue's been coming to the Tuesday and Saturday morning sessions since then. In 2022-23, she participated in the Mitra Study Foundation course that I was leading, and this enabled me to get to know her better. Sue works at Ashton, where she's the press lead and does the media work, sharing positive climate innovation stories with the media and encouraging them to write more about it. She's very involved with community and climate groups, including XR Buddhists, One Us Sangha Buddhist Group, the Green Party, an environmental centre in Walthamstow, the Hornbeam, and other informal community and green groups in Walthamstow. At home, she has a wonderful family, and Buddhism, she hopes, is helping her become a better family member among all the various negotiations of family life. She does retreats whenever she can, at Adhisthana and Vajrasana, and participating in the Deep Ecology days and retreats. She even once shared about her work at Ashton at a Deep Ecology Day at LBC that a number of the NLBC members came to. For obvious reasons, she loves green Tara. This autumn, she started year 2 of Mitra study and really enjoys her group, finding it supportive and stimulating. I'm happy for Sue that she continues to be happy and comfortable practicing with others in the Triratna context. I believe that in many ways there's an expression of the Bodhisattva path in her life through her compassionate actions for the benefit of other beings. I'm delighted that Sue's becoming a mitra today. With metta, Guhyasaki.
Thank you, Darshavani and Guhyasaki, and Premananda is now going to introduce Thomas.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Thomas.
We'll just get your head in view before.
Hello. Yes, my pleasure to introduce Thomas to you. Thomas, the gentleman here. Thomas originally came from Germany. He came to this country, I'm looking at my notes, in 1994 to learn English. And he's still here. He works as a paralegal, and he looks at particularly intellectual property rights. I'd also like to welcome his son, Leon, here. Well, welcome. Thomas lives with his partner and has two sons. It was originally a mindfulness course that drew Thomas to Buddhism. It's a mindfulness course at his school, and he found an attraction to meditation. And then, like all, a lot of us, things kind of come and go and fade a bit. Anyway, there was a little particular incident later on, which I'll come to. But after the mindfulness course, Thomas went to the North London Buddhist Centre and actually did a course with Ratnaprabha in 2018. Anyway, to come back to this incident that happened later, which was Thomas returning a TV set to John Lewis. The TV set wasn't working, and he wanted to return it. It wasn't a simple thing, and Thomas found himself getting into quite difficult mental states. And as a result of that, he said to himself, I've got to get back to meditation. That's interesting about Thomas, isn't it? He can look at his experience and look at the kind of frustrations and the difficulties we all have in life and say, I want to do something about it. I want to meditate. So it's relating to his experience and then acting on it. So difficult experiences can be very positive if we make the right move afterwards. And in his case, it was going to North London Buddhist Centre, initially online, at a meditation course online, and then on a weekend retreat with Vasuddhimati and Lorita Raja. And then he started a course with myself and Kusla, a foundation course, for a year, and is now in the Mitra study course with Nandiraja and Suriprabha. Anyway, I noticed one thing about Thomas, which was when he gave a project at the group, his first project, it actually was an outline of the whole of Buddhism. He's very thorough. He had it all mapped out. Very thorough. And also, I was very impressed with his, as you get to know Thomas, he's got a lovely sense of humour. I definitely have a sense with him that he's on a path of transformation. He wants to transform his mind into one that's more beneficial, more kind. As he put it to me, less of a pain in the bum for other people. I think that's a good motivation to practice, being less of a pain in the bum for other people. He actually wrote a few lines, which it kind of explains it. I want to become a mitra because, for me, Buddhism is to learn to tame the mind, to be less of a pain to those around me, to turn my frantic mind into a loving mind. Triratna has lots of awesome order members and it allows me to learn from them. If to find inner peace, I'll let you know once I've found it. Grateful that Triratna provides a structure for learning. So I think I feel confident in Thomas in his spiritual practice because he's made the important connection between having an understanding of Buddhism and how we relate to the world. Well, actually, our understanding of Buddhism leads to, hopefully, if it's a kind of understanding that goes deep enough, compassion for other people. Wisdom and compassion go two sides. They're two sides of the same coin. So I'd like to say, well done for becoming a mitra. Great that you're doing it. Well done for the path you're on. Thank you.
So now we've got the ceremonies themselves. Maybe the camera needs to come down again. And during the ceremony, it's a very, very simple one. It's making in silence 3 offerings to the Buddha. So here is the Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, the representative of human potential, one's own potential for enlightenment. And in connecting with the Buddha, there comes forward in your hand a blossom. First of all, a blossom, a flower. And that flower is the flower that represents the process of growth and unfolding, that represents the beauty of life, and also represents the fact that everything comes into blossom and then fades, turns into a seed, grows into another plant, which will then blossom and then fade and so on. So that's a reminder of impermanence. And the second offering they're going to make is of a candle. So always on Buddhist shrines, you'll always see light, and the light represents the light of enlightenment, the light of waking up, the light of seeing things as they are clearly, the illumination of one's real basic awareness. So they'll offer a candle. And then finally they'll offer a stick of incense. And the incense, the fragrance of the incense fills the room, moves out further, and in that sense is similar to the fragrance of leading a life of benefit, and a life which is creative, and a life which is creating of oneself. That will affect other things, like a gentle fragrance, not a violent effect, but an effect where people turn their head and feel, oh yes, there's something there, isn't there? Yes. So those are the 3 offerings that are going to be made. Is there anybody present who is allergic to incense?
Yes.
In that case, we'll ask the people to, when you light the incense, get the smoke coming out a little bit. Don't wave it.
Not too much.
Don't wave it in your Kulamitra. And then just turn it upside down and put it out in the incense bowl here. So first of all, Jason, and here is his flower. And I'll give him the offerings one at a time, and he can offer them in any way he wants to. Secondly, the candle. thirdly, the incense. And the second mitra ceremony is soup. First offering the flower. Secondly, the candle. And thirdly, the incense. And now Thomas. And Thomas is going to offer a flower and some flower seeds. Secondly, the candle. And thirdly, the incense. So now that Jason and Sue and Thomas are all mitras, they're part of our mitra community, our mitra Sangha, we need to rejoice with a very, very loud noise. And the loud noise is the noise sadhu. 3 times. Sadhu! 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 So congratulations. When we finish the puja, if we could leave the 3 of them sitting here quietly, at least for a few minutes. And so if you have a card or anything for them, if you just leave it quietly beside them, but maybe wait until they go downstairs before you chat and congratulate and ask questions and all that.
And hug.
And hug and so on, yeah. So just at first, just leave them sitting quietly, and we'll all leave the room after the concluding mantras finish, and leave you sitting here as long as you wish to, except for not for more than 24 hours.
So now we'll have the Avalokiteshvara mantra.
Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om 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 Mani Padme Hum. Padme Hum. Om Mani 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 Padme Hum.
Salutation. As many atoms as there are.
As many atoms as there are.
In the 1,000 million worlds.
In the 1,000 million worlds.
So many times I make reverent salutation.
So many times I make reverent salutation.
To all the Buddhas of the 3 eras.
To all the Buddhas of the 3 eras.
To the Siddharma.
To the Siddharma.
And to the excellent community.
And to the excellent community.
I pay homage to all the shrines.
I pay homage to all the shrines.
And places in which the Bodhisattvas have been.
And places in which the Bodhisattvas have been.
I make profound obeisance to the teachers.
I make profound obeisance to the teachers.
And those to whom respectful salutation is due.
And those to whom respectful salutation is due.
Going for refuge. This very day.
This very day.
I go for my refuge.
I go for my refuge.
To the powerful protectors.
To the powerful protectors.
Whose purpose is to guard the universe.
Whose purpose is to guard the universe.
The mighty conquerors who overcome suffering everywhere.
The mighty conquerors who overcome suffering everywhere.
Wholeheartedly also I take my refuge.
Wholeheartedly also I take my refuge.
In the Dharma they have ascertained.
In the Dharma they have ascertained.
Which is the abode of security against the rounds of rebirth.
Which is the abode of security against the rounds of rebirth.
Likewise in the host of bodhisattvas.
Likewise in the host of bodhisattvas.
I take my refuge.
I take my refuge.
Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Panatipata.
Panatipata.
Veramani. Sikkhapadam.
Sikkhapadam.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Adinadana.
Adinadana.
Veramani. Sikkhapadam. Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Kame Kamesu, Michachara, Veramini, Sikkhapadam, Samadhyami, Musavada, Veramini, Sikkhapadam, Samadhyami, Suramerya, Raja, Hamadatana, Veramini, Sikkhapadam, Samadhyami, Sadhu, 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 with deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. With open-handed generosity, I purify my body. With stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. With truthful communication, I purify my speech. With mindfulness clear and radiant, I purify my mind. Confession of faults. The evil that I have heaped up, through my ignorance and foolishness, evil in the world of everyday experience, as well as evil in understanding and intelligence, all that I acknowledge to the protectors, standing before them, with hands raised in reverence, and terrified of suffering, I pay salutations again and again. May the leaders receive this kindly. Just as it is with its many faults. What is not good, O protectors? I shall not do again. Rejoicing in merit. I rejoice with delight. In the good done by all beings. Through which they obtain rest. With the end of suffering. May those who have suffered be happy. I rejoice in the release of beings. From the sufferings of the rounds of existence. I rejoice in the nature of the Bodhisattva. And the Buddha. Who are protectors. I rejoice in the arising of the will to enlightenment. And the teaching. Those oceans that bring happiness to all beings. And are the abode of welfare of all beings. Entreaty and supplication. Saluting them with folded hands.
saluting them with folded hands.
I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters.
I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters.
May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma.
May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma.
For those wandering in the suffering of delusion.
For those wandering in the suffering of delusion.
With hands folded in reverence.
With hands folded in reverence.
I implore the conquerors desiring to enter Nirvana.
I implore the conquerors desiring to enter Nirvana.
May they remain here for endless ages.
May they remain here for endless ages.
So that life in this world does not grow dark.
So that life in this world does not grow dark.
The Heart Sutra. The Bodhisattva of compassion, when he meditated deeply, saw the emptiness of all five skandhas and sundered the bonds that caused him suffering. Here then, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is only emptiness, emptiness only form. Feeling, thought, and choice, consciousness itself, are the same as this. All things are by nature void. They are not born or destroyed, nor are they stained or pure, nor do they wax or wane. So, in emptiness, no form, no feeling, thought, or choice, nor is there consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no colour, sound, smell, taste, touch, or what the mind takes hold of, nor even act of sensing. No ignorance or end of it, nor all that comes of ignorance. No withering, no death, no end of them. Nor is there pain or cause of pain, or cease in pain, or noble path to lead from pain. Not even wisdom to attain. Attainment too is emptiness. So know that the Bodhisattva, holding to nothing whatever, but dwelling in prajna wisdom, is freed of delusive hindrance, rid of the fear bred by it, and reaches clearest nirvana. All Buddhas of past and present, Buddhas of future time, using this prajna wisdom, come to full and perfect vision. Hear then the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantra, the prajna paramita, whose words allay all pain. Hear and believe its truth. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Transference of merit and self-surrender. May the merit gained, in my acting thus, go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
My personality throughout my existence.
My possessions.
My possessions.
And my merit in all three ways.
And my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself.
I give up without regard to myself.
For the benefit of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Are serviceable in many ways.
Are serviceable in many ways.
To the infinite number of beings.
To the infinite number of beings.
Inhabiting limitless space.
Inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become.
So may I become.
That which maintains all beings.
That which maintains all beings.
Situated throughout space.
Situated throughout space.
So long as all have not attained.
So long as all have not attained.
To peace.
To peace.
Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Jetsun Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mara Bhajanadi. Om Mara Bhajanadi. Om Mara Bhajanadi. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Tare. Tutare. Ture. Swaha. Om Tare. Tutare. Ture. Swaha. Om Tare. Tutare. Ture. Swaha. Om Amideva Hri. Om Amideva Hri. Om Amideva Hri. Om Muni Muni. Maha Muni. Shakya Muni. Swaha. Om Muni Muni. Maha Muni. Shakya Muni. Swaha. Om Muni Muni. Maha Muni. Shakya Muni. Swaha. Om Mahung. Vajraguru Padma. Siddhi Hung. Om Mahung. Vajraguru Padma. Siddhi Hung. Om Mahung. Vajraguru Padma. Siddhi Hung. Gate Gate. Haragate. Harasangate. Bodhisvaha. Gate Gate. Haragate. Harasangate. Bodhisvaha. Gate Gate. Haragate. Harasangate. Bodhisvaha. Om Shanti. Shanti.